Speaking of news coming out, though, now this is a story that we have actually covered before on this show, and that is the Jeffrey Epstein story. And, his is a story of abusing young women, minors, children, for decades and getting away with it.
Not so well-kept secret.
Yeah. He's a Palm Beach and New York-based financier. He's a billionaire.
And he was a billionaire before there were more billionaires. So he was a billionaire before it was popular to be a billionaire.
He was before there were so many billionaires that we've seen so many billionaires minted in just the last couple of decades. But no, he was a billionaire in like the late 90s. So he was a billionaire when, that really meant something. And he flies all around the world on his private jet, and there's all kinds of issues with the jet and what goes on the jet. And this is kind of a factually dense story. But, he was investigated by the FBI and even the state's attorney and local law enforcement, but with an FBI component, well over a decade ago because of all the allegations that have been well known. For 20 years, it's been known what this guy does, that he recruits and abuses girls, some as young as 14 and maybe even younger. We don't know all the details of his abuse, but obviously he has no compunctions about abusing minors, female minors. He actually pleaded guilty to 2 counts of soliciting a prostitute, a minor prostitute, back in 2008 and was convicted. Now, he was given 13 months in prison, and this was such a sweetheart deal, and we've talked about this before. He got a sweetheart deal from the U.S. attorney, who's now the secretary of the Department of Labor, who himself I know personally and is actually, I think, a pretty nice guy, Alexander Acosta. So I don't know how he got into this situation where he felt like he needed to give Jeffrey Epstein this sweetheart deal, but I'm sure he regrets it now that they did this. But, it was a seriously sweetheart deal because they had over 60 victims that they knew about at the time. And remember, Bob Mueller was the director of the FBI at this time, the Boy Scout. The Boy Scout apparently didn't care if Jeffrey Epstein was abusing Girl Scouts. He did not care because they allowed them to enter into a non-prosecution agreement that was secret, and we've reported on that.
And was there, maybe I'm mixing stories together, but was there some other tie between Epstein and Mueller where he had him testify or as a witness in another case?
Yeah.
Separate from this case.
Exactly. That's what's been alleged.
That's really muddied the waters.
You nailed it. That was thrown out there as an allegation, apparently to muddy the waters, because the story was that the FBI let him go in exchange for him giving information and testimony against the Bear Stearns people.
That's right. About
their bad acts during the collapse. But I will tell you, just recently, like within the past month or so, Fox Business has reported, and there are multiple sources. These are not anonymous sources. These are folks who have allowed for themselves to be named in the story, who say that he did not provide any information for that prosecution. So that was a red herring that was thrown out there to muddy the water. Like, well, they let Epstein go, but it was only because he turned state's evidence and gave the government valuable information that it needed in order to prosecute these horrible financial crimes. And Lord knows, what's more serious than financial crimes, right? Abuse, and we're using the term abuse because we don't want to get into a lot of the details, but it's real serious. It's really, really serious and nasty and sad, the things that were done to these poor girls. And it was a pattern in practice. He got these girls recruiting other girls, and he was paying them a finder's fee to essentially bring their friends over, etc.
They called them female fixers.
Yeah, female fixers. And, of course, Epstein's...
Fixer-uppers.
Yeah, I know. Epstein's number one fixer is a lady named Ghislaine Maxwell. She's a British lady. She's much older. Not older than Epstein, but much older than the girls that he's been after. And she was involved in recruiting a lot of girls, including a girl named Virginia Roberts, whose name is public. In fact, she's had a suit against Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and others. And she's now married, Virginia Roberts. Very sad story because she was really... she alleges, and I think has the evidence to prove it, that she was flown around the world and essentially passed around to high-level dignitaries, including Prince Andrew. The brother of Prince Charles, the younger brother and former husband of, what was his wife's name? Fergie.
Was that Princess Ferguson?
Yeah, right.
Or Duchess Ferguson, right?
Yes, that's right. And so that's her ex-husband is Prince Andrew, who got, I think, thrown out to the curb because he was such a Lothario. Well, Virginia Roberts has got a picture of her as like a 17, 16-year-old girl with Prince Andrew, with his arm around her and her arm around him. And you're going, well, geez, what's the chances of that happening to a 16, 17-year-old? And so Ghislaine Maxwell was part of the recruitment process for all this. And the Lolita plane is what's used. Yeah, there you go. You found the photo right there. So with a simple search, you can go out and find this photo for yourself. I mean, what's being told about this guy is the truth. And now finally, the FBI and NYPD Crimes Against Children Task Force has arrested him in New York. And as of this time, he has not been granted bail.
They said he's probably not going to get it.
He probably shouldn't get it because you got to worry about him getting on that plane and getting to his little island, Little St. James Island, also known as Lolita Island. And, we don't want... He's a clear flight risk. But hopefully the chickens are finally coming home to roost for Jeffrey Epstein, who's engaged in this kind of behavior for decades. And sure would be nice to see him get into trouble and see some justice done, and certainly for all the victims. We'll be right back, and we'll go out there. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.